Hey, this is Jared Fujishin. Welcome back to Chapter 3. Let's jump right in with the triangle of meaning. Alright, so this first thing that the chapter talks about is something called the triangle of meaning. And with the triangle of meaning, there are three primary things. There's the thing, the word, and then the thought that is associated with that word. So think back to our last chapter. In our last chapter, we looked at how words are symbols, and the triangle of meaning really helps break that down. So let's take a look. The first thing you have is the word, and we're going to use dog again because, it's simple. That's what we used last week. We'll use it again this week. The word dog itself does not exist in nature. The word dog is a human construct. But when you hear the word dog, you often think of the thing, which is, that little animal. And then you have the thought that is associated with those two things, which is this furry, four-legged animal. So let's talk about the thing. First of all, if this picture doesn't melt your heart, you may not be human. This is a little puppy golden doodle. And side note, if any of you raise golden doodles, let me know because my wife would love you forever. So we have the actual thing. We have the little cute cuddly dog. And then we use the word dog to represent that. And when you hear the word dog, you think of the thought. And the thought is this animal that we all know and love. But think about this. Because words are symbols, we don't all think of the same thing unless we're looking at the dog. So kind of get that picture out of your mind, and if I were to say, hey, I want you to think about a dog, you may think of this. Or you may be thinking of this dog. I love that the tongue is sticking out. Oh my goodness, hilarious. Or you may be thinking of this dog. Or I don't know why you would think of this, but you may be thinking of this dog. When I say dog, you think of what's most familiar to you. I think of what's most familiar to me. So if you own a dog and you hear someone say, hey, think about a dog, most likely you picture the animal that you own. Now, when it comes to communication, and more importantly, when it comes to interpersonal communication, we need to make sure that we're all on the same page when we say something. Now, dog is kind of a silly example, but when I say, hey, I had an argument with my best friend last night, the word argument may mean something different to me than it means to you. An argument for me may be a heated discussion. An argument to the third person may be someone screaming. And an argument to another person may be slight passive-aggressive comments. So when we communicate, we really want to distill our language down to make sure that we all understand the same thing. So looking back at the dog example, let's look at the ladder of abstraction. Notice at the very top, we're talking about very broad things. We're talking about a creature. A creature could be anything. And if I said, hey, I saw a creature last night, we all have these thoughts in our head. Does a creature mean like a little spider or a creepy crawly thing in the house? Well, let me be a little more specific. I saw an animal last night. Okay, still not super broad. If I'm talking about an animal, it's still very open to interpretation. But if I say I saw a dog, or more specifically, I saw a golden doodle last night, now everyone is on the same page with what I'm talking about. So, if you are talking about emotion, and you're trying to tell someone that what they did frustrated you, you don't want to say, hey, I had emotions about what you said. That's so broad. And even I was angry. Well, anger can mean different things to different people. But if you can be really specific and say, hey, when you said that to me the other day, I felt disappointed and kind of deflated, and here's why. And this can be really strange for some of us. We're not used to talking like this. But it helps really clarify what you're trying to say. So the other person you're talking to really understands, and you don't fill their mind with things that you don't mean. Because just saying, hey, I had a lot of emotions, or I was really upset when you said that. That's a good start, but you want to move down the ladder of abstraction to really clarify your points when you speak to someone. We moved from that to I statements. Now, I statements are kind of unusual to use at first, but if you can understand the power of them, they will help you so much. Let's look at this first example. A lot of times when you're talking with someone, they'll use general terms saying, well, everyone believes, everyone knows. Hey, I don't like you and everyone else thinks you are, and they fill in the blank. And there's a lot of power behind using that. Let's say you and I had a conflict. I'm sure we never would. You seem like an awesome person. But let's say that we had a conflict and I didn't like how you talked about my car. Okay, I heard that you made fun of my car because, it's a little puttin' car. I got an old truck and you were making fun of it. So I approach you and I say, hey, why do you do this? All the time, everyone knows that you are always so belittling. Well, there's a lot of power behind what I just said because I said everyone knows, and that's probably not true. In fact, I can almost guarantee it's not true. There are people that don't believe that. Your mother, I'm sure, would never say that about you. So what I need to do is be more specific and use an I statement. I didn't like when you fill in the blank because it really gives ownership of the thought to me. So let's look at this example. Everyone thinks ranch on pizza is amazing. Is that true? Probably not. But I like ranch. I don't know if you do, but I put ranch on everything. Ranch or chocolate goes on everything. So I would say I think ranch on pizza tastes good. I take ownership and it's easier to communicate about that. Here's another example. It removes the blame. So if I say you make me sad when you forget our plans, that puts all the blame on the other person. Remember how in our first lecture we talked about the locus of control? I don't want to give someone else the burden of saying, you made me feel this way. And just imagine someone pointing a finger at you and being super rude. You want to redirect it back to yourself. You want to say, I feel sad when you forget our plans. I'm taking ownership of the emotion. I'm not blaming you. I'm just letting you know how I feel. And one of the great powers of this is when you're talking with a friend or a spouse or a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you say, I feel sad when you forget our plans, there's nothing to argue. If I say, hey, you forgot our plans and you made me sad, suddenly people get defensive and they say, whoa, it's not my fault. Maybe you should be more flexible, and then this argument starts to escalate. But if you can use an I statement, it removes the blame and says, hey, I just want to let you know how I'm feeling. And you can't debate how someone else is feeling. That is going to be true for them. So it removes a lot of the tension in disagreements. So learning to use I statements, especially in conflict, is a huge thing to understand for healthy interpersonal relationships. Now, speaking of healthy interpersonal relationships, let's talk about ways to deepen your relationship. There are a couple different ways that we talk to people. The first is called surface talk. It's just pleasantries. They don't last very long. It's just, hey, how's it going? Oh, good. I'm doing good. How are you doing? I'm doing good too. Now, a little side note about this. If someone says, I'm doing good, that's not grammatically correct, but don't correct them. What a horrible way to start a conversation. Hey, I'm doing good. How are you? I'm doing well because and it's so pretentious. Don't do that. Just roll with it. Let people talk the way they want to talk and engage them, enlarge them, build them up. Now, that's part one. Surface talk is very basic, but as we move down and we get more vulnerable to build more trust, maybe you start reporting facts. Now, instead of just pleasantries and saying hi, these are basic statements that you make. They're a lot of times I statements or, man, this weather is sure hot today, isn't it? That's a statement. It's not very vulnerable because it's a fact. Where we get more vulnerable is in this third part. We're giving opinion. So Let's say we start surface talk. Hey, how's it going? Man, this weather sure is hot today, isn't it? I don't like hot weather. All right, I just gave an opinion. Someone is now open to disagree with me, and that's why a lot of times opinions can be scary to give when you first meet someone because you don't know how they feel about that subject. Weather, maybe not so much. You're probably not going to get in a huge argument, but imagine something like politics or religion or money. It's scary to give our opinion because, man, someone may disagree, and if they hold their viewpoint very highly, you can get frustration and anger and an argument. That's why when we first meet people, a lot of times we don't give opinions right off the bat. You don't walk up to someone and say, hey, I hate that dress. All right, have a good day. That would be so weird, and you would have no friends. So we need to learn to use filters, but also in our romantic relationships and our friendships that we're trying to build and have been built in years, we need to feel safe giving our opinions. And we need to have the type of relationships where other people feel safe sharing their opinions and what they believe about the world without fearing judgment from us. And that will lead to the very final one. The deepest you can go and the most vulnerable you can be is when you're sharing your feelings. We don't do this with everyone. A lot of times we don't walk up to strangers and say, I am depressed. And here's why, right? And there's a reason for that. We probably shouldn't just be going up to people. But our closest friends, it's late at night, you're hanging out, and they say, hey, it's me. Tell me, how are you really doing? Say, well, you know what? It was really hard when this happened, or I've really been struggling with this and it made me feel blank. That's hard to do. Studies also show that sometimes it's harder based on gender. A lot of times women are very good at this. They're very good at expressing emotion, and whether it's because they're born that way or it's society, who knows? But studies show that women tend to be more in tune with emotion. Us men, man, sometimes it's a little bit harder. It's not socially acceptable usually to just walk up to your guy friends and be like, well, here's how I'm feeling today. But if you're a guy and you struggle with this, or if you're a lady and you struggle with this, it's so important to find people who are safe and for you to start practicing speaking about your emotion. Giving a name to your emotion will help it lose its grip and its power on you. So even though it feels a little weird if you're not used to it, get in the habit of saying, I feel, and then fill in the blank, and why you feel that way. There's power in that, and it deepens relationship. When your friend opens up and shares something really vulnerable with you, that takes your relationship to the next level. So it's up to us to do that with our friends so that we initiate deepening the relationship. This last part of the lecture, I really want to dive deep on because you have a project on this, but it's also fascinating. Now, you remember from your reading, there's something called the Johari window. Now, the Johari window has 4 different parts, and you'll notice that the 2 parts come together to fill in what's in the box. So let's look at, there's self-knowledge, there's unknown knowledge to self, there's what's known by everyone else, and there's what's not known by everyone else. The more we share things in the Johari window, first, it'll deepen relationships, but before we even get to sharing it, we have to know these things about ourselves. So I want to walk you through a little example, and I want to show you my Johari window. I'm going to get a little more vulnerable with you for some of these points, but hey, that's what we're supposed to do to deepen relationship, right? We're family now. This doesn't go outside of the room, all right? Known to self and known to others. This is the open window, and I'm going to share some things from my open window. Unknown to self and unknown to others, unknown to self and known to others. This is our blind spot. These are things that I don't know about myself, but anyone who's met me for more than a couple minutes probably knows. Or this is the thing that people are afraid to share with me because they're worried how I'll react and I'm just oblivious to it. Known to self and unknown to others is our hidden area. It's the things that we know about ourselves, but we don't want other people to know. We don't share it within our first few minutes of interaction. And then the final part, the unknown. This isn't known to us, it's not known to others, it's something that is yet to be realized. Okay, so let's take a look at these. For myself, something that's known to me and known to others is that I'm a teacher and I'm a husband. Now, this is known pretty quickly. You know I'm a teacher because I'm teaching you. And you know I am most likely married because I wear a ring on my left hand. So very quickly, people realize a few things about you. And this will probably be the easiest part for you to fill in on your Johari window. What do you know and you're not afraid to let everyone else know? Now, I gotta tell you, I was writing this and I was doing like lecture notes and I was like, oh, I should put freakishly attractive as a joke. And my wife was sitting next to me and she goes, no, don't do that. That's so silly. So I didn't put freakishly attractive. Although, let's be honest, you, me, we're all just beautiful, beautiful people. Now let's look at this next part. This is the unknown to self, so I don't know this about me, but it's known to others. Now this was a little harder for me to fill out. I actually had to ask my friends and my family around me, hey, what's something that seems pretty obvious to you, but you think I may not know? And what they came up with was this, inquisitive and sporty. Now here's why this is surprising to me. Inquisitive, I don't feel like I'm an overly inquisitive person. I just like school. I like figuring stuff out. But that's not how I identify. Yet, when I asked my friends and my family, they said, you ask a lot of questions and you seem inquisitive. So I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to write that one down. But the second one is what really took me back. I'm not a sporty person. I wear dress clothes a lot. I don't watch sports. I'm not smart enough to understand what's going on. You know, if I go to a baseball game, I'm like, hey, how do they score a goal unit? You know, I'm not a sporty person. So it surprised me, and it was unknown to me, that people view me as sporty. You know, I run and I do some exercise, but I don't talk about it a lot. Most people don't even know that. So that was interesting to me. When you do this, it's going to be a little weird. You're gonna have to talk to people and say, hey, what do you think I don't know about myself that everyone else seems to realize or think? And then that's how you'll fill out this part. The unknown to others and known to self. This is our hidden area. This box is what we don't necessarily share right off the bat. So let me share some things about me that I usually don't share right off the bat, but you know, because we're family, I'm gonna let you in on this little secret. The first is that I'm actually an introvert. I like being by myself. I recharge by just sitting at home and staring at a wall. You know, and I think this surprises people a lot because I teach a lot of classes on communication. I know how to give public speeches. I know how to be interpersonal. And if we met in person, I would be engaging just like this video. Like, I like people, but that's not how I recharge. Some people who are more extroverted recharge themselves by being around people. For me, I recharge with solitude and walks in the woods near my house where I'm just by myself thinking. That gives me energy so that I can hang out with people and love on people and build relationships. So I don't often start conversations by telling people that I'm introverted. Similarly, I have an anxiety disorder. I've had it since I was a kid. And when I first got it, I didn't even know what was happening. And it was before people really talked about mental health. Now, thank goodness, it's more and more common to talk about it. But I took medication for my anxiety for over 6 years. I mean, it was bad. It was so difficult for me. And so that's not something that I just meet people and share. Say, hey, I have an anxiety disorder and I take medication for it. You know, that's not something that comes right off the bat. But people who really know me and love me and who I feel safe with, I share that part of my life with them. And as we're going to see in this final slide, the way to deepen relationships is to open the first box, the known, and start letting that bleed into every other aspect of the boxes. But we'll get there in a minute. Lastly, unknown to self and unknown to others. This is something that's yet to be discovered. My cha-cha skills. I've never cha-cha'd. I don't even know what cha-cha is, but I really like the word. I was looking it up and I thought, cha-cha, that's fun to say. I'm going to use that. I've never done the cha-cha. I have no idea. I could be horrible or I could be the best cha-cha dancer that's ever lived. We don't know, so it's in the unknown box. Now, if you want to deepen relationships, here's what you need to do. You need to take the open section and you need to expand it so that in relationship, more and more of the things that are known about you are in the open sphere. You want to remove the blind spot. Start asking people, hey, are there character traits you think I could work on? That's a scary question to ask, because what if they actually have one? Yeah, you're judgmental, or you talk a lot, or, I don't mean to offend you, but sometimes, and fill in the blank. That's a scary question to ask. But if you want to deepen your interpersonal relationship with someone, it's an important question to ask. In fact, I do this a lot. It was really uncomfortable at first, but in my first few years of marriage, my wife and I started this thing where every once in a while I'd say, hey, how am I doing as a husband? What can I do better? Or are there things that I'm doing that are bothering you that maybe I'm not even aware of? And even though it's a really uncomfortable question to ask, it changed our relationship. My wife and I began speaking to each other about things that maybe wouldn't have just come up in casual conversation. And we also have this. If you're going to do this with someone who's real close to you, here's a rule that my wife and I have, and this is free. This is free. You can take this one. We have this rule where if one of us asks, hey, how am I doing as a husband? Or if she says, how am I doing as a wife? Our rule is the other person can't ask, because here's what can happen. If I say, oh man, there's some things sweet Aurora's doing that I really want to let her know. So I'm going to ask a question and say, hey, are there things I'm doing? Hoping that she'll ask, and then I can just lay this list out. And that is manipulative. That's not healthy. So really early in our marriage, we made this rule that I would ask this or she would ask this, and then it was off limits for 24 hours. The other person could answer, but they couldn't ask, and what can I improve on? So it really is this question where you're genuinely wanting to know, are there blind spots in my life? Are there things that are unknown to me that are known to you that I can work on? And blind spots aren't always bad. Sometimes it's really encouraging. But that is one thing that can really take a relationship to the next level. The hidden, this is fully on us. As you start developing in your relationship, and notice it's when you develop, you don't just jump right in with someone and say, here are all of my problems in life, because that will scare people away. But as you start growing in relationship with your friends, with a boyfriend or girlfriend or husband and wife or kids or grandparents, whoever it is, if you want to deepen the relationship, you need to start sharing some of those hidden things. So for me, remember some of my hidden things, that I'm introverted, that I recharge by myself, and that I have an anxiety disorder. My closest friends, and even people who are just in the friend category, not even super close, I try to be open about these things. I want to be known, because what I've found is the more open I am with my hidden area, the more open other people are. If I model vulnerability first, a lot of times that's reciprocated. And that's where great relationships happen. If you just have this hidden view of yourself that you're never sharing, and you only share the good things or the bright and shiny things, that's not deep relationship. That's not even love. That's idolization, right? You present this image of yourself, and other people are infatuated with that image. But if I can share some of the uglier parts of my life, and as I grow in relationship with friends and my spouse and the people I love, if I can start sharing some of the things that are a little darker and harder to share, man, that's going to take my relationship to the next level. Because if I share something with my wife and she still loves me despite what I would normally hide, then I know that that's true love. It's not just this emotional infatuation love. It's this love that says, hey, I'm going to be patient and kind and non-judgmental no matter what you share. And even as I'm sharing that, doesn't that sound good? Don't we all want relationships where we can fully be known and still be loved, where we don't have to hide or put this image of ourselves up? We can kind of let our hair down, so to speak, and still be loved. Well, I want to help you create those types of relationships. And in interpersonal relationships, this is the way you do it. You take what's known and you expand it and shrink all of the other boxes. Now, you're going to be doing a project about this, and there'll be instructions online, but as you're doing your project, I want to invite you to really think about this. Don't just view this as another project you have to get through to try to get an A or a C or whatever you're trying to get. This will help you in life. Taking a day to just think about it and walk around now that you have the information and say, I wonder what I hide that I don't even know I hide. Maybe it's not even a bad thing. Maybe you're just really, really humble and you don't want people to know about your accomplishments, that you are valedictorian. Why is that? And do you let people who really love you in on that? So I can't wait. This is one of my favorite projects because I feel like we really get to know each other. In my video lectures and when I teach, I feel like I get known because, I'm the one doing all the talking. But this is so special to me because you're allowing me to enter into your world and see a little bit more of who you are. So my promise to you, and you'll read this in the instructions, is that no one else sees this. My wife doesn't see it, no other classmates see it. This is just something between you and me because I want you to have a safe space where no matter what you share, I'm going to love you. I'm gonna be for you, and I'm gonna be rooting for you, and there's nothing that you can share that will turn me away. And I just want you to know that at least one person in your life is gonna have that for you. And hopefully, my deep hope for you is that you start building relationships where other people can say the same thing. Now, that was the chapter and a recap, and even like a little bit about your project in a quick recap. And I hope that it made sense. I hope that this is encouraging. And most of all, I hope that you're practicing this. Don't just let this be another class that you're trying to get through. Put this into practice and watch how it affects your life. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have an incredible week, and I'll see you again soon.